Downtime is something that's usually on the IT side, monitored by the IT department, and they see real time when a mission critical item goes down. But on the lesser mission critical items, a lot of times they don't notice that there's downtime in progress until they're looking to accumulate data and they don't have the data set they thought they would get. So not all items are monitored in the same way. And that is the biggest misconception that is experienced in retail. A lot of times, this is really related to security systems, with phone lines becoming less supported by the phone companies. We've seen a shift from a phone line to a data network of some sort to communicate intrusion signals to a monitoring center. A lot of times, when that happens, you're subject to internet outages both on a wireless network and or a wired network or even optical network. We've actually experienced some situations where the network went down, an intrusion took place, and since the backup system had lost its connection to the internet, we didn't actually get the notification until after the incident took place. So there was some damage to the store on the attempted break-in. Luckily, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but that's a situation where we're seeing some technologies that are being migrated away from and to others. And we're seeing some impact, especially on these types of breaches, that we don't get the information in real time. That's why it's really important to have a primary and a secondary communication system in place at all times. Different systems have different issues. So from my experience, when a video system goes down, which is there to collect evidence normally in a forensic manner, when it goes down and they don't have an active monitoring system to tell the system that it went offline, then you're looking for evidence after a break-in, like we were talking about a minute ago, where you don't have access to that data. So usually what breaks first is, the connection to the primary and secondary systems. And then the second thing that happens is we can't actually institute a response because we're unaware that it took place. So, when systems goes down, it's really important to have some sort of proactive monitoring system in place to let us know that it's not communicating, it's not recording, it's not looking at the right view. And Telaid has some options for that we could go into at some other point. A lot of times a minor issue can escalate into a major problem because of an incident. So if they were unaware that a piece of technology wasn't working as intended and a break-in or a theft occurred, and the system that was there designed to detect, deter, or record the incident as it was occurring, if that wasn't happening the way it was intended, that small issue, which could have been resolved prior to the incident, becomes a much bigger incident because we now have a secondary event that is exposing the lack of connection. So it can happen very quickly. We work in a people game as well as a technology game. So when people make unfortunate choices and the technology is not there to detect those choices, it can become a bigger problem very quickly. The true cost of downtime that most retailers don't account for is the soft cost of getting everything back up online. So you're going to have a hard cost to have it working. You've made the investment in the technology, you've made the investment in training the people. And then when something happens, and that's not part of the training, there is a hidden cost of mobilizing a partner like Telaid to the site, or a subject matter expert from the retailer's team to the site to investigate and resolve the issue. There's some hidden costs there that aren't part of the equation, probably not part of the ROI model, but probably should be. Downtime will start impacting shrink or, the ability to protect assets almost from the moment it starts. So if you had a camera that was designed to detect if somebody was approaching a store after hours and it wasn't working the way it was supposed to with the visual deterrence or some canned responses through some audio, it very quickly can escalate into a loss event because the deterrence didn't happen. So downtime can lead to a loss very quickly. Since we rely upon automation and not people to detect these things more often than not, when that automation doesn't work as intended, you'll also start impacting shrink or assets. A lot of times people will say, what do you guys sell? And a lot of times the real answer is we sell change, because we're helping retailers select new technology that require not only plans, but installation, but the hidden cost is training. Getting all of the associates that are now going to rely upon this new technology trained on how to use it, how to leverage it efficiently, and how it helps them reduce time, task, cost, or risk from their jobs. We call that the soft cost of an ROI model. And that's usually an art form, which is, let's look at the operation and determine what are we considering from a hard cost, which would be the technology, the licensing, the cabling, the labor to install it. But then it's the soft costs that are going to be incurred by all the training that needs to take place with the people now using that technology. And finally, the cost that turnover incurs when that retailer has to replace people that have previously been trained, and now they need to train new people on that same technology. So there's an ongoing cost. And I think that's probably one of the biggest hidden costs with retail technology deployments. I think this is a dual-edged sword, because a frequent small outage, if it's happening with a particular set of technology, say for instance, a firmware update needs to take place with something, and that's at all your locations, and you have 1,000 locations, that could be impacting 1,000 sites simultaneously. One major outage possibly is just one store in particular. So I think the question would, be better served by saying they both have a cost, and, the ability to monitor things in real time should avoid that if at all possible. And that's where planning with the IT department and the loss prevention department are very, very important, so that they're aligned and nobody's duplicating efforts. This is probably demonstrated by some of the Q&A that we do with many of our clients, which is we want to talk about what's next in their technology stack. What are they looking to invest in? And most of them say that they're looking at AI and computer vision to help automate things. The blind spots are, how many other departments within the organization are having that same question? How many are already down the same road? How many are duplicating efforts? And when they're not aligned, everybody's trying to explore the same opportunity, and they're all spending time where they could create probably a far more efficient process by bringing everyone together internally and saying, all right, who's leading this effort? And then what are the use cases from each department? But somebody's going to be the one that's out there looking for a partner or an independent software vendor to help them with those objectives. The blind spot is, learn what's going on within your organization before you go outside for discovery. And this goes back to, on the store operations systems, the POS, the network, the guest Wi-Fi, all of those things that create the in-store experience. The IT department normally has a monitoring system in place to monitor all of those systems, softwares, devices. The most common gap is that doesn't exist with the loss prevention system. So we're really championing providing that type of service. We call it device watch for less of a better term, but we want to know if a camera is out before it's out. And if it does go out, we want to have some automation to try to recover that device before we have to involve a technician remotely or dispatch a technician. So that's the biggest gap we see. The IT departments do a really good job of this. The LP departments are playing catch up, and we can help them with that. The biggest risk here is when the system is in a silo and it's not part of that collective IT silo. A lot of times you'll see risks associated with the network being vulnerable because the IT department is not part of the solution for inventorying that system, monitoring those devices. A lot of the time, the loss prevention systems are on their own small private network within the environment, and that doesn't help them leverage all of the other systems. So when they're in those own silos, the IT department usually is monitoring their side of the network. The LP department isn't monitoring their side of the network. And I think, in a perfect world, we'd get those to the same network so that the whole system has a unified monitored approach. Standardization of systems. Many of the loss prevention teams inherit disparate systems. So they'll have manufacturers of this camera, of this VMS, of this alarm system, or they'll have multiple monitoring systems. But the biggest risk is having multiple platforms that they have to manage. And it's hard to manage not only the maintenance of those, but the training of those and the updating of those, because you end up with so many updates to do because you have so many systems. So the fastest way to reduce risk across stores is to standardize on those systems so they become easier to maintain and leverage so they can keep the store safe. The biggest thing that we would love to partner with the retailers on is a faster refresh cycle for loss prevention systems. Most of the IT systems are on a 3 to 5 year refresh cycle, and those things are updated, and that helps reduce ongoing expense for repairs or licensing because they're as current as possible or as close to current as they can be. The LP systems oftentimes fall victim to, if it isn't broken, we're not going to fix it mentality. And we think that that's a recipe for increased operational expense as the years go on. And then you end up going back to what we were talking about earlier, which was outages. Those outages are going to happen more frequently on older technology. So if we could fix one thing, it would be to get to a faster cycle of reset. And this is probably one of the most under-leveraged portions of camera systems technology. So just about everyone has a VMS in place of some sort, and they're leveraging that system to record video. And in many cases, they're archiving video automatically because they're linking it to some small events that take place, some small integrations, but they really don't have what we would call unification. Unification would be when the video analytics are being used to enhance an intrusion system. So they're using line crossing, they're using motion boxes, they're using schedules to determine if somebody's in an area that they shouldn't be because it's after a certain time or if it's before a certain time, and as well as intrusion, because intrusion systems are so susceptible to false alarms that the video would help curb many of those false alarms more quickly. So again, utilizing video as part of the solution on the intrusion side, we're seeing a lot of retailers move away from the use of a traditional alarm system in the mall environment because they can get 90 to 95% of the same capability that they do with an intrusion system on video just by using smart settings in the video analytics. And then they're cutting down on the amount of false positives that they get because the video does a good job of filtering out things that don't mean anything. So typical would be a motion sensor activates. The camera says there's no one there, but you can actually see that signage or a fixture is moving because of the HVAC system. The video would help determine that and avert a false alarm. They're actually complementary. So if a door opens, there's going to be a sensor on that door. That's something that a camera is going to be able to detect, but the immediate trigger is going to be the door itself opening on that sensor. So The cameras aren't going to tell you that the door opened, but the camera's going to really tell you that the door is seeing something coming through that door that shouldn't be there. Cameras do a really good job of seeing things when there's great lighting. So when that door opens, the other thing that we can do is kick the lights on, because the sensor told the system that, hey, that door opened. We want to kick the lights on so that camera can now do some more. So that's really what we're trying to do, is leverage interconnection between the systems to make them smarter. Getting proactive monitoring systems into the siloed network that the loss prevention teams have for cameras and other devices, so that they get automated alerts that a camera's offline before they need the video that they can't get. So I think that's that technology, those monitoring technologies that the IT teams do a great job of deploying, but we don't do a great job of putting them into the loss prevention system. So we're really championing that this is the next step to make sure that mission critical systems that are driving data back to the operations teams, to the marketing teams, to the sales teams that are coming from the loss prevention systems are there when needed, and the accuracy of the data is enhanced by the uptime that we're able to maintain.